the opposite of trauma feels like nothing.
Yeah.
Safety feels like nothing. When you feel safe, do you notice anything going on around you? Not necessarily. You don't notice if there's a man walking behind you down the street. You
Yeah.
just live your life. And
Yeah.
that's what the opposite of trauma is. The opposite of trauma is nothing.
When somebody is trying to process trauma, what kinds of tools would you recommend that somebody use to help them handle what they're going through? Does that question make
Yeah,
sense to you? Okay.
it does. And I think the important thing is a good trauma therapist will resource you with the tools that you can use when that happens. And so something that's really hard is I think sometimes, as a practitioner from that perspective, if we've got a few sessions in that day, sometimes we forget. But really the important thing is like having that conversation. So if you know that you're going to go through trauma therapy, I would bring that up right away. What are the coping skills you can teach me to deal with this beforehand? Um, and I always tell people who I've worked with, like, if you're going through trauma, this is a renovation and you're going to live in the house you're renovating, right? You're going to experience a lot of emotions. And I need you to allow yourself to sit with those emotions. Number one, you need to be able to sit with the emotions that you're having and allow them to move through you. The reason why trauma is trapped in your body is because half the reason is because there's some things you haven't expressed emotionally or let out. You haven't let yourself feel, you buried it, right? So if you're feeling intense grief and sadness and you need to cry, I need you to let that happen. And I need you to know that you are safe in the physical space, or find a physical space that you feel safe in to allow that to happen. Because it's going to feel like you're dying. You're having a panic attack. You're crying. You're feeling intense grief. That's what needs to happen, though. You need to let your body do that. There's no stopping it. The only way out is through, right? Number two is, after knowing that you're going to experience the grief, like this is the shadow that you've been running away from, it's your time to face it. And it's the exact opposite of what you want to do. You want to run away from pain. And I'm asking you to turn towards it and absorb it, right? But the second thing I would say too is like grounding skills are great. Like, that 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch. I think it's 2 things you can taste and 1 you can smell. But doing that in your physical environment, reminding yourself, oh, I'm not in the trauma. I'm in my house. I'm not in the trauma. I'm in like such and such room doing such and such thing in 2023. Like I'm not where I was. And your body and your brain like to try to trick you into going back there. And the other thing is like use your tools, use deep breathing, use journaling, use mindfulness skills to kind of try to stay in the present and allow yourself to process through those emotions. And it can be really scary because you're having these intense emotions and you have to remind yourself, like, a strong emotion has not killed me yet. A strong emotion, like, it is just a strong emotion. It is temporary. It will pass. I've had strong emotions before. Maybe I haven't had this intensive one, but I've had strong emotions before and have survived. The emotion itself is not going to be the thing that ends my world. I'm going to get through this. And being able to talk yourself through that is really important. But there's a lot, right? And there's a lot of tools. Sometimes somatic things help. Like if you're doing like yoga is an example of like a body-based healing modality. You can do like comfort mechanisms. I love it when people have like weighted blankets or like they are holding ice or they're taking a shower, a cold shower or hot shower. Honestly, hot showers work just as well. All of these skills that you can do to just try to help yourself get through it. But the goal is not to avoid it. The goal is to get through it. It's just like if you were, you're driving through a storm. You're not going to stop the rain, right? You're just going to drive a little slower, right? And so it's all about how you move through it. And I think that's the number one thing that stops trauma survivors from going through the whole process is sometimes their therapist hasn't prepared them adequately for that experience. And so when they go through it, they're like, is this normal? What's wrong with me? There's like, this is getting worse, not better. I thought therapy was supposed to make it better. What's going on?
Yeah.
When in reality, when you heal trauma, it's going to feel a little bit ugly before it feels nice again.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I was really helpful for me was one of my therapists talked to me about how EMDR is like a bone that healed wrong and you're, suffering from it every day, and you have to re-break the bone and reset it and allow it to heal. And that was a helpful analogy for me because there's a tremendous amount of pain involved in it, and it takes time to heal, especially like a broken bone. Like if you broke your leg, it takes time to heal. And I naively thought that it was just going to be really quick, and it wasn't. And it was, at first I was, I went on a Friday, I think it was like a Friday, and over the weekend I was in a mess. Like I thought, I don't know what's happening to me. I don't understand what's going on. And my therapist had talked about, okay, what are you going to do with this? And I didn't know what she meant by that at the time. And so I sent her an email saying, I think I'm dying. Like I need help. I don't know what to do. And she got me in, right away on Monday. And when we talked about it, she explained a little bit better, what was happening. And we went to 2 a week because I'm like, I cannot wait a week between sessions. Like this is, I can't do that. This is too much for me to handle. But the thing with healing is that it ends, right? There's an end to, there's an end to healing, and you just have to be patient through the process. And for me, I recognized I needed to eliminate unnecessary stressors during that time. That the focus needed to be on the healing and allow myself, like, if I just needed to watch television, that's okay. Like, don't judge myself for the things that I was doing during the process, because the goal during that time was just to heal. Like if you're sick and you're laying in bed, you're not going to judge yourself for just watching movies all day, or, or if you're, recovering from, with a broken leg and you just want to read all day, it's okay to do those things because you're, the goal is self-care and healing during that period of time, and it will have an end date. It's not going to go on forever. Right.
Exactly. And I would also say I think healing does have an end, but there might be things that come up later on. Like I feel like healing is like kind of, it ebbs and flows depending on what you're healing from. And I feel like healing like one phase of something has an end and it's going to get better, and then you're going to heal the other phase until eventually you've moved on with that, and then you have new life experiences that suck, and then you heal from those, right? So I like that there is like, you do reach milestones and you'll be able to look back. Like for me personally, I used to have panic attacks every single day. There was a point in my life that I had them every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And I can say I haven't had one probably in about 3 or 4 years. That's a big deal, right? Like from every day to a couple times a week to like maybe once a month to maybe just when I was extremely stressed out to never, right? Like that's a lot of progress to make. And you think that you're going through, and you're like, oh, I've been going through this for so long, or like, when am I going to stop having these, or when am I going to stop dealing with them? And then eventually you stop and you don't even notice that you've stopped, right? Like there's a time when I kind of realized that it's been a few years since I had one. And I was like, I didn't even notice when I stopped having them. When was the last time I had one, right? Because you get used to a new baseline. When your baseline isn't like feeling crazy and feeling overwhelmed all the time, you like don't even notice, and that's the amazing thing. The opposite of trauma feels like nothing. Safety feels like nothing. When you feel safe, do you notice anything going on around you? Not necessarily. You don't notice if there's a man walking behind you down the street. You just live your life. And that's what the opposite of trauma is. The opposite of trauma is nothing.